everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's so lovely to be with you all. My name's Radhi Devlukia. I am the author. This is a cookbook with 125 plant-based recipes, but it's so much more than just a cookbook. It is our wellness rituals to take you through from morning to evening. I've shared all the things that have completely transformed my life and brought me so much joy day, and I've poured it into this book. And so I actually am a nutritionist by profession, and I've studied incredible holistic health science. And through having studied all of those things and through my life experience and having had such incredible food cooked for me when I was my mom, I basically took all of that and poured it into this book. And so I'm really excited for you all to have it. I would love to share some of the things that are in the book. So along with the recipes, like I said, I've got things like breath work. Now, breath work was something which I would say is the that completely transforms my day, whether it is the breath work that I do to calm my anxiety in the morning, breath work to energize me mid-afternoon when I get that, afternoon slump. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And breath work to lead you into the evening, to relax you and calm you down, wind down to get really good sleep. Alongside that, the way that you can morning routine. So routine to optimize in the morning, to create more balance in your day, to create more peace in your day and clarity. I think a morning routine is really important to be able to go into the rest of your day feeling like you've got more purpose in your life. And I think that for me, a morning routine has been really beneficial as I've changed countries, as I've tried to settle into different places that I'm in. I've kept my morning routine as my anchor. What else is in this book? I want to give you guys a little sneak peek, actually, because I feel the most beautiful thing about this are the pictures. And I was really lucky to have my family in the shoot. And so you've got my grandma here, my mum's here too. My dad makes a little debut in the book as well. He's very camera shy, but he agreed to be in it for me. But there's so much family heritage in this book too. My grandma's an incredible cook, and so is my mum. And honestly, my dad's a great cook too. And all of those people in my life fed me so well that I feel like it infused through my blood and helped me to create this beautiful relationship that I have with food now. And so I really hope you feel that as you make your way through the book. I just want to add that if you would like a signed copy, you can go to JoyFull and you can there. But I'm so happy that you guys have all joined here. And I think what we're going to do right now is we're going to answer some questions that you've already sent in. And then if you guys have any questions, then please them in the comments, and I will definitely as possible. So excited for this.
So we have a question from Brenda in California who asked, how did you decide what recipes to add into the book? And what was your favorite thing about making the book?
Oh, how did I decide what recipes went into the book? That's a really good question. So let me start off by saying, I'm going to sign some while I'm sitting here. Let me start by saying I nearly 190 recipes for this cookbook. We've got 125-ish. I think that we snuck in a few extra than 125 in this book. And honestly, I started off by thinking about what do I want people when creating the food, the in this book. And the word that came to mind was joy. So that's all even came from. It was like, what do I want people to feel when they're reading this and when eating the book? Yeah, when you're eating the book. And so what I did in my mind was create dishes of different categories. So I started off with the categories I wanted in the book. So going from morning to evening. And then within each category, I thought, what are the different textures and flavors and colors that people would want to see? What I wanted was someone to be able to open the book and that there would be something for every single person. And so depending on what craving, what vegetables you want. So we've got sweet, you've got savory, you've got your lighter options, something a little bit heavier and more comforting, and all the different colors of the rainbow. And so I really try to create each recipe as an individual thing that feels like something special as you flick through it. You really won't find anything that feels the same throughout the book. And the other way that I also created the recipes within each one was, in Ayurveda, they talk about how the perfect meal is created when you incorporate all 5 tastes, and that's sweet, sour, salty, astringent, and bitter. And so actually it sounds really complicated, but it's not. It's thinking, what can I add in that creates all of these flavors within a dish? So whether that's in the sauce, whether that's in the vegetables, the herbs, the spices you're using. And so subtly I also incorporated that. So when you eat that recipe, you feel fully satisfied with all the flavors in there. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda from California. Another question that we have from Savannah, also in California. Got a lot of California fans.
Amazing.
Have you always liked to cook, and when did it become a passion of yours?
Yeah, I'd say I didn't always love to cook, but I always loved to eat. And I was definitely someone who lived to eat. And my mom, from as far back as I can remember, she had a full-time job, but she always cooked us fresh breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And it was so, so special to have that in my life. And I think having that food and how much love that she poured into it, and my grandma did the same thing, I feel like I felt that through my body. And as I grew up, my affinity and my relationship with food and cooking changed as I learned more about it through my nutrition degree, as I learned more about it as I became a dietitian. And then when I studied Ayurveda, I was like, wow, food has such an incredible impact on your body. You can really change so much of your life just by the food that you're eating. And so as much as I loved eating at the beginning, it then kind of flowed into a love for helping people understand their body better and fuel themselves in a way that they can really optimize their health.
It actually leads well into a question from Amy in Stockport, the UK, who asked, I'm a very picky eater. Where would you advise I begin with healthier eating?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what I'd say? Experiment. If you're a picky eater, now, you know what? I don't even like that term. You could call yourself particular. That's probably better. You're not a picky eater. You're particular in the things that you eat. But one thing I recommend for that, I remember when I was a dietitian, they used to call them like the fussy eating pediatric clinics, where it'll be all the little kids who maybe only liked eating, well, at that time, like chicken nuggets and chips. That's what I used to get told by parents who would come in. And what I would say is, try everything. Go into the store, pick a vegetable that you would never normally eat, pick a spice that you normally have or you haven't ever tried. Try a grain that you don't normally use. Go crazy when you go shopping, and then just start experimenting in the kitchen. And if you don't like it this time, go back to it 6 months later. What people don't realize is our taste buds change over time. So there will be things that you may not have liked 2 years ago that you eat today and you will absolutely love. So allow your body to also tell you what it's craving and what it needs, but don't be scared to try new things. And I think that's what the key is. If you find yourself being a picky eater or someone who's a bit fussy, experimenting and being flowing with, not being too scared about trying new things. I would just recommend that. Taste the rainbow, try everything that you possibly want to, and then make a decision, because informed decisions are way better than not trying something just because you think you don't like it.
Have you always eaten a plant-based diet?
Oh, I was born vegetarian. Whenever I say that, people are like, how can you be born vegetarian? Well, my mom was vegetarian, my grandma was vegetarian, her mom was vegetarian. And so I pretty much only have a vegetarian bloodline. That's what I usually say. And so I was born vegetarian. And then my sister actually read this book called Eating Animals by James Saffron. And I loved everything my sister did. She's 4 years older than me. I was like, she's so cool. Whatever she does, I'm going to do too. And so she was like, I'm going vegan. I was like, I'm going vegan too. And she was like, you have no idea what that means. Read this book first and then decide whether you actually want to do it. And so I read the book too. And it was just one of those things where I was so oblivious to what was happening in the dairy industry, in the meat industry, and in any of the farm. I had no idea of what was happening. And so once I read it, I really couldn't unsee it. And so the conclusion for me was, do I want to it's a choice between my satisfaction and another being suffering, and I couldn't justify my satisfaction for suffering of something else or someone else. And so from that point on, I slowly but surely started cutting things out. The last thing I cut out with dairy was cheese, because I loved cheese so much. So I kind of did it in stages. But yeah, I think I've been plant-based for about, well, at least over 8 years now, 8 to 10 years. Yeah.
There's another question from Kennedy in Arizona,
Okay.
who wants to know, do you make Jay try all of your recipes?
Ooh.
What are some of his favorites? And what are some that he hasn't liked?
Oh, that's a great question. I already know. I'm going to start with the ones he didn't like. Jay does not believe that you can consider something a dessert if it doesn't have chocolate in it. So he is a firm believer that don't trick me by calling something dessert if it's got fruit in it. That's fruit. It's not a dessert. And so any desserts that I have made that have fruit or that, you know, basically the healthier, like nicer dessert, he's a basic dessert guy. He wants chocolate in all the ways. His order when we go out usually is chocolate ice cream, chocolate brownie, chocolate sauce, chocolate sprinkles, and chocolate everything. So there's one dish in this book, which is my chocolate mud pie. Let me show it to you guys because it is gorgeous. Well, no, let me show you this one first. He'll make an exception for this one, by the way, with the fruit thing, because this is the chocolate ganache, chocolate cake, and cherry compote, a celebration cake. It is by far the most delicious cake that I've ever come across. And then this chocolate mud pie. It's a really cheeky treat. And so he loves that. And just so you guys know, Jay actually has a debut recipe in this cookbook also. It's called Jay's Mexican Rice. The first time he's ever cooked for me, answering your other question, the first time he's ever cooked for me in his life, and probably the last. But I will tell you, the one time that he did cook this Mexican rice, it was actually pretty good. And I was surprised that something he made it into the book, but it did, and it was brilliant. So I've actually made it a couple of times now, and I'm shocked at how good it actually is.
That's amazing. Is there an ingredient that you love to introduce to people?
Yes. Okay, when you get my cookbook, you're going to see there's one ingredient that pops up quite a bit, and that is a spice called asafoetida. Now, don't get scared by the name. It's actually a brilliant spice, and it mimics the flavor of onion and garlic. And so I love introducing people to it because it mimics the flavor. It has such a strong taste, but at the same time has so many benefits for your gut. It helps to soothe your gut, helps you to digest the food that you're eating. It's been used for centuries to help put into food to do that for that reason, like to help you digest your food. And so I love giving that as an option for people. And the recipe book has a lot of that the cookbook has a lot of recipes with that in it. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in any Indian store. It's really readily available now. So that's definitely one of my favorite ingredients.
So Lisa from Maine dropped a comment that said that they're new to the wellness journey. What are some easy tips for grocery shopping?
Oh, good question. So the first thing I'll probably say is meal plan, because it can get really overwhelming. You go into a grocery store and oh my goodness, there are just every option. There's like 5 different types of apples. There's, walls full of different flours, different grains, different everything that you can buy. And so I would say start off by picking recipes from a cookbook or from, online of recipes that really attract you, that seem like something you'd really enjoy eating. Plan your meals out and then write down all the ingredients that you need and then go shopping. Don't go shopping and then decide what you're going to make, because that can be a lot more difficult. So I say meal planning is definitely step 1. I think start there. That's the best place to start.
And then another wellness question, this one from Jacob in Florida. What does your wellness routine look like?
What does my wellness routine look like, Jacob? I will tell you. So my favorite thing to do, I mentioned this earlier, my morning routine. Morning time for me is like a sacred little bubble that I get to have for myself. And I really encourage people to figure out what that morning routine looks like for them in the book. And I help try and, help you to figure out what that is for you. But for me, it's waking up earlier than usually before the sun rises. I love waking up in that, just the little bit before the sun rises. It gives you such calming energy before the crazy energy of the sunshine starts coming up and you're ready to go and get things done. And I usually do my meditation in the morning, and it's a practice that I've done for over 10 years now. It's mantra meditation. I don't know where I would be without it. It's changed me in so many different ways. So I do my mantra meditation in the morning. I love a good skincare routine. I really do. I feel like, if you think about when you hug someone, when someone's like not feeling their best and you give them a hug, there is so much you gain from a hug. And in the same way, I feel like when you do a skincare routine or when you do a wellness practice called Abhyanga, which I share about in the book, it's like a body massage. It's basically you giving yourself a hug and saying, I love you and I'm looking after you and I want to take care of you. And so I'd say a mixture of those rituals, and a huge part of it is looking after myself in what I'm eating. Like, am I feeding myself food that allows me to feel uplifted and nourished and energized? Or am I feeding my body food that actually is dragging it down and not giving it its ability to live to its full potential? And so I'd say feeding myself well is a big part of my self-care and wellness rituals. And then also going to bed early. I am an early sleeper. You will not catch me out past 10 o'clock unless I really love you or really want to be at a concert. And that's very rare. So I'm definitely an early sleeper. In bed by 9:30, knocked out by 10.
We have some questions about inspiration. Where do you get your cooking inspiration? And do you have any go-to cookbook authors or creators that you get ideas from?
Where do I get my inspiration from? I feel like every single thing is inspiration. Like everything that we allow into our senses, into my eyes, into my ears, the sense that you smell, the food that you eat. And so I was so blessed from a young age. My family would travel so much around the world. My dad would save up and pick one international place that we could go to on holiday all together. And what was beautiful is my mom would take the culture and bring it back with her into the kitchen. And I feel like I really learned from that. And so we ate so many different cuisines growing up. And so I'd say my inspiration comes from food that I've eaten, places that I've visited, places that I've lived. I've lived in the UK. I've, spent a lot of time in India and been in the US. And so it's a culmination of everyone and everything that has influenced my life. And I end up creating recipes usually in a way where, okay, let's say we want a burger. How can I add my own touch to it, my heritage? So I'll do a Indian spice burger, or I'll add specific spices in to just, elevate it a little bit. So I'll use inspiration of what I've seen, but then everyone has their own personal touch to things. And so I'll think about what that is of mine, and I'll kind of adjust the recipe accordingly.
And then Tyler from Nevada. Tyler from Nevada wants to know, kind of similar inspiration question. Do you have favorite music that you listen to while cooking?
Yes, Tyler, I do. I actually have this playlist on Spotify. It's called my mantra meditation playlist. I think it's something like that. It's a meditation, spiritual music playlist. And, it really does make a difference. The intention and the mindset that you have while you're cooking, it really infuses into the food. And it changes the way the food can even taste. And that may sound really woo-woo, but it's actually not. Energy is exchanged through everything. And so I try to listen to music that gets me in a loving, kind mindset so I can pour that into the food. So I actually listen to a lot of spiritual music, or I will listen to an audiobook that makes me, think of gratitude or something that basically whatever uplifts me. That is what I would put. So whether I'm dancing in the kitchen while I'm cooking, or whether I'm deeply trying to listen to things that make me think about how can I pour love and energy into this food so it doesn't just nourish this person physically, but it can nourish them mentally, spiritually, so that they can go out into the world and serve other people in the most beautiful way. And so if you want, I've got that playlist. I think it's open to the public, so you can definitely check that out.
Can you tell us about a meal that is especially memorable for you, or a special meal that you've shared with others?
What's memorable to me, and I don't know whether it's one particular meal, but it's all my meals with my family. I am so grateful that I grew up where my mom, my dad me and my sister, it was like a non-negotiable. We would have to eat dinner together. And at the time, I would probably be like, oh, Mom, I just want to go out and I want to eat with my friends and I want to eat in my room. And I didn't appreciate it then. But now they were the moments that really bonded us. Like we bonded so much over the meals that we ate. And so now I think about it. It's like whenever we're thinking about meeting up, the first thing that's asked is, well, who's making what? Like who's making what? What are we going to be eating? What's the cuisine? Who's bringing dessert? And we all bond so deeply over that. And so I wouldn't say there's one meal in particular, more the memories that have been created through the meals that I've had with the people that I love.
So we're getting some questions about motivation, a comment that says that you're very motivating. And Keela from Rhode Island wants to know what would you say your top tips are for staying motivated to pursue your passion?
That is such a good question. I'll tell you what, I've struggled with that for a long time. And you know what helped me? And I'm going to be completely honest, committing to something where other people were watching. And that sounds really lame because everyone's like, you know what? It's an intrinsic thing. You have to get motivation from within. And as much as that is true, sometimes you need people that you are, what's the word for it? Like that you have to be accountable to. And sometimes accountability breeds consistency. And I have noticed that in myself. And so I'm talking purely from experience, may not work for everyone, but for me, accountability to other people bred consistency. I knew I had to meet deadlines. Otherwise, people were going to be upset. I knew people had invested time and energy and care in me. And so I needed to reciprocate that back by putting in the work and the hours. And so I used to be the person who struggled with getting really excited at the beginning of a project. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm done now. I don't want to finish it. So I actually found it so difficult to complete things. And that's why this book has been so important to me. I actually share one story about this book, which I don't think I've shared yet. But there was a moment, I think it was last Thanksgiving or something, where my whole book was saved on Google Docs. Don't ask why, but somehow it got deleted. The whole thing. By the way, we just finished writing it and the whole thing got deleted off my account, off everyone's account. It got deleted somehow. And at the time, Jay was like to me, why? You don't seem very stressed out. Like, what's happening? How are we going to fix this? And I said to him, this made me realize that I did this so much more because I knew I had something to share and I knew I needed to complete something, even more so than it going out into the world. And that sounds so crazy, but I honestly felt that way. I was like, I completed something. And that was such a big part of me pouring into this project that I can't believe that I have even got to a point where I have a cookbook, because I was someone who found it so hard to stick to something. And so I got the book back, by the way. We called Google. But I will say that it is such a beautiful thing to start completing things. So I would say start small. So whether you're dedicating to your wellness practices, whether you're dedicating yourself to work, whether you're dedicating yourself to writing a book, start small. Decide to write one page at a time. Don't think about the full book. Like, everything is about small little steps towards a really big goal. And that's what I kept reminding myself. I wasn't even thinking about launch week until like a month, 2 months before, because all I was focusing on was, let me get this book written chapter at a time. I hope that was helpful.
There's a lovely comment from Tilly who says that you have inspired her in many ways and that they love eating, drinking spices daily in their life, especially CCFT. Yes. Could you tell everyone what CCFT is?
You know what? Anyone who has followed me for a long time, you're going to get sick of hearing about spices, but don't, because spices will help you not get sick. So spices are literally in my life. And so whenever I hear people telling me they're doing the CCFT, it makes me so happy because I know how much it has changed my body by drinking it every day. CCF is, did you ask what it was? Because I got lost. Yeah, CCF is coriander seeds, cumin seeds, and fennel seeds. I have this in my book. It's one of my morning drinks. And it's seen to be like the queen spice blend. It helps with digestion. You know, we've been sleeping for 8 hours. And so our digestion is kind of resting the same as we were. And so it helps to reignite your digestion. It helps to purify your blood. It helps to detox. You know, during the night is when our body starts to do its cleaning system. So it starts cleaning things out and it starts going around all the different organs and goes around your blood. And it's like, we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. This isn't useful. And it starts clearing things out. And so to help that process in the morning, rather than keeping those toxins in our body, it helps to take them out gently. And so need I say more? It's basically just an amazing drink that you all have to have.
So you talked a little bit about some of the nutrition and everything, and you mentioned being a dietitian. Could you tell everyone a little bit more about your journey into nutrition? And specifically, there are some questions about protein and how to reach, how to maximize protein intake while following a plant-based diet.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually have in the book, I have a whole section that's called, Will I Get Enough Protein as a vegan? That's literally what the section is called. And I go through the different ways that you can do that. But the first part of the question was what, sorry?
Tell us about how you became interested in nutrition.
Yes. Okay. So the way I became interested in nutrition. So the honest truth is, I wanted to be a doctor, as a lot of Indian people do when they're growing up. I was following the trend and I was like, I want to be a doctor. And I really did. I wanted to be a pediatric doctor. So I always wanted to be in the health space. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't get the grades for it. And so my mom was like, you know what? Have you heard of this degree called nutrition? By the way, my mom has always had the best advice for me, has always been very intuitive with what I would be good at. And so when she said that, I was like, yeah, I don't know what else I'll do. So let me try out nutrition and see what it's like. I started the course and I was like, wow, I've always wanted to learn this, but I didn't even know that there was a course that I could do for it. And so I kind of fell into nutrition, but then because I loved it so much, I did another degree as a dietitian so I could work in a clinical setting. And then it all just started rolling on. Then I did an Ayurveda course and then I did my yoga teacher training and I became a serial student. And so I honestly fell into it, but I realized I didn't really fall into it. It was my mom's intuition and knowing that actually this is the space I was meant to be in and then that I would thrive in. And the vegan, how to make sure you're getting enough protein, that's a good question. I have been focusing on that a lot over the past 2 years, how to increase my protein and as a vegan. And I've really come up with some good tips that I've shared in the book. One of them being planning your meals around your protein rather than your carbohydrate or or anything else out of the macros. If you're focusing on protein, figure out what is my protein in this meal going to be every single time I'm eating a meal. And that's really helped me because it's made me realize I had a diet that was predominantly based on carbohydrates and a little bit of protein. And so since I've been having more protein in my life, I have noticed a difference in my hair fall, in my energy levels, in my satiety. I feel so full now, whereas before I used to have such large meals to actually make myself feel full. And so, yeah, I've shared a lot about that in the book and how you can, meet over 100 grams of protein in your diet quite well and quite easily if you're focusing your meals around the right thing.
And then speaking of meals, what's your go-to favorite comfort meal?
What's my favorite? Okay. So I have two types of comfort. So my first comfort is when I'm missing home and I feel like, when you're feeling a bit under the weather and you want something that your mom would normally cook you. And so for me, that's a dal, like a lentil dish and some basmati rice. That for me is just a bowl of comfort for me because it reminds me of my mom. But then there's the other side where I want something really cheeky. And that for me is a pizza, fries, and some sort of decadent dessert. And so it really depends what kind of comfort you're going for. But those are usually my go-tos depending on my mood.
And you showed us the decadent dessert in your book. But you also have the pizza, right?
I do, guys. Yeah, by the way, what I realized, since I got back in January, at the end of the year, I was eating out a little bit more. I was exhausted. I wasn't in the mood to cook after creating this cookbook. And I'd done so many recipes. I was like, I'm a bit burnt out. I don't think I can cook anymore. This year, since I've got back, I've literally eaten out once this whole year. And I've just been cooking at home every day. And you know what's honestly helped me? And I'm not just saying this. I've been cooking from my book. And what it made me realize was having things to turn to when you're feeling like you want to eat out, but you really sometimes just know you want to eat something that's still good for you. You don't know what oils they've cooked things in. You don't know how it's been made. There's always hidden ingredients, whereas cooking at home, you don't have that. And so to facilitate that, now if I'm like, I really want a burger, I have a bean burger in here. It's so good, a spicy bean burger. I'm going to show it to you. And then I also have a pizza 4 ways, naan pizza 4 ways. We've got noodles, pastas, all the bready goodness. I've got a whole section that's like a bread section because I love bread so much. Oh, here, look, naan or roti pizza 4 ways. There's 4 different versions that you can have and make at home. And look, if you want to have a bit of a cheat, you can buy your naan, you can buy your base, but then you can make all the toppings at home yourself. And the burger, I have to show it to you. Here you go. I grew up on bean burgers. Like when someone would say, I want a burger, I didn't even know other types of burgers existed. This was my burger, and it is so good and flavorful. So yeah, there's definitely some dishes like that can be your comfort go-tos, but ones that you can just make easily at home rather than going out.
And then we're just going to do 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what was the most surprising part of writing JoyFull?
What was the most surprising part? The most surprising part for me, it was more of an internal thing where I never felt like I had enough to share to write a book. And I always felt like I was someone who had to keep learning. I kind of hid behind studying. And it was such a beautiful surprise. Like it reminded me, and I hope it serves as a reminder to other people, that everything that you have learned in your life can be a lesson and helpful to somebody else. And that's what this showed me. I was like writing this book and I saw all this like just pouring out of me. And I was like, God, I didn't even know I had that in me. I had no idea that I had processed this information in this way. And so I think it gave me a surprising reassurance and belief in myself and confidence in myself that I didn't have before. And so I'm really grateful to this whole process of writing the book, because it built my confidence and my kind of, sense of ability so much more than I thought it would.
And then the last question before we sign off is, what are you working on now? What do you have coming up?
What am I working on now? That's a good question. Everyone keeps asking, is there a book too? And I was like, I have no idea. It might be. I'm in a phase right now. I had this big thirst for studying again at the end of the year. I felt like I'd, done a lot of pouring out, but I was kind of neglecting the pouring in. And so I have written down all these courses after this book tour that I want to do just to, learn more so I can give more. And so this next year is looking like a lot of studying and reading. I'm reading like 6 books at once at the moment, and I'm loving it so much because I felt thirsty for knowledge, and I really wanted to dive deep and dig deeper into the stuff that I already know, but on a deeper level. I just wanted to touch on something. Priya Kishori Devidasi, hi. She said, how do you create healthy relationship with eating and avoid comfort eating? I love that question, because a big part of this book was me sharing the different ways that I created a healthy relationship with food, because I also have and still have a big part of me that turns to food for when I'm feeling stressed or anxious, and it's my comfort. But I think that we have to change the terminology of what comfort food means, because I think there's a difference between food that is comforting for your body, which means it makes it feel good, and food that we turn to, which actually makes us, we think brings us comfort, but actually makes our body feel bad. And so I've shared in the book a lot about that, because I think we're so used to listening to other people and what they think is good for them, and then translating that into us without actually seeing, is it good for me? And how to actually notice what foods are good for me. How should I be feeling when I'm eating? What are the signs and symptoms my body is telling me that this is fueling me or that this is draining me and it's not the food that I'm meant to be eating? And so I shared a lot about that in the book. And so I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's a really important part of the book. Well, thank you all. We're good. Okay, thank you all so much. I deeply appreciate all of you for joining. Thank you for all the love and the comments on the side. It's been so wonderful reading them. And if you would like a signed copy, I've literally just been sitting here while I've been chatting to you. If you'd like a signed copy, then you can go to joyfullsignedbook.com, and I think the link is just here. Thank you all so much, and see you soon. Bye.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.